They won't remember what you wore. They won't recall the exact words you spoke. But they'll never forget how you made them feel when you entered the room. There's a force, quiet, invisible, undeniable, that lives not in volume, not in control, but in presence. Influence. Not the kind that shouts to be heard, but the kind that listens so deeply it echoes in others long after you've left. This world is drawn to noise. Platforms reward the loud. Algorithms favor the outrageous. But true power? It doesn't need a spotlight. It doesn't scream. It doesn't chase. It magnetizes. And the ones who wield it? They understand something most don't. They know that you don't influence people by dominating them. You influence them by awakening something inside them. Abraham Lincoln said, "A drop of honey catches more flies than a gallon of gall." And yet, every day, we throw gallons of anger, criticism, and judgment at others, believing that force equals strength. But Lincoln knew better. He built bridges with empathy. He disarmed enemies with kindness. He didn't manipulate, he inspired. Because influence isn't control. It's connection. The truth is, people follow those who make them feel seen, valued, capable. And that begins with the quiet things, the unspoken gestures, the moments of attention, the pauses before we speak. You want to lead? Then learn to listen. You want to inspire? Then learn to understand. You want to be followed? Then learn to care. The man who founded Disney was fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination. The man who invented the light bulb failed over 1,000 times. The man who wrote Think and Grow Rich started as a poor reporter. But what they all had, Walt Disney, Thomas Edison, Napoleon Hill, was not just a vision. They had belief. In themselves. In others. In something greater than noise. They didn't push people. They pulled them in, with purpose. That's the quiet power of influence. It's built not on status, but on spirit. And it begins with mindset. Because you cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot lift others when you are weighed down by your own doubt. Influence begins with what you feed your mind. The thoughts you entertain. The beliefs you defend. The standards you set. Do you wake up reacting to the world? Or do you rise with intention, knowing that every interaction is a chance to leave a legacy? The world won't hand you influence. It is earned, in the shadows, in the disciplines no one sees, in the character you build when no one is watching. It is not reserved for the loudest or the richest or the most followed. It belongs to the consistent. The kind. The aware. The people who show up with fire in their hearts and grace in their words. Who are bold enough to stand firm, and humble enough to stay open. Because every time you walk into a room, you change it. The only question is, how? Let that question burn through your doubt. Let it shape your belief. Because belief is the birthplace of all influence. Not blind optimism. Not wishful thinking. But grounded, deliberate, powerful belief. Belief in what you stand for. Belief in the value you bring. Belief that you, too, are capable of sparking something in someone else that could alter the course of their life. Belief isn't just a feeling. It's a force. It's the engine behind every act of courage, every word of encouragement, every hard decision made for the greater good. And it doesn't have to be loud. In fact, it's better when it isn't. It lives in the steady voice that tells you to keep going when results haven't shown up yet. It lives in the way you choose to see people, not for who they are, but for who they can become. You want to influence someone? See their potential before they do. Believe in their greatness before they feel ready. Speak life where the world has spoken fear. That's the kind of influence that changes people forever. Because people will rise to the expectations placed upon them, not the ones shouted at them, but the ones quietly believed for them. That's what I've seen, time and time again. When you look a person in the eye, not to judge them, not to instruct them, but to truly see them, you do something most never bother to do. You dignify them. And in a world that constantly asks, "What can you offer me?" the rarest kind of influence is the soul who asks instead, "What can I bring out in you?" That, my friend, is where transformation begins. You don't need authority to be influential. You don't need a title, a corner office, or applause. Influence is not about position, it's about posture. It's about standing with people, not above them. It's about lifting others up without reminding them that you're the one doing the lifting. Think of the greats, Lincoln, Carnegie, Roosevelt, Eleanor, Helen Keller. They didn't need to overpower others to become powerful. They turned empathy into action. They turned understanding into momentum. They walked into rooms and gave people themselves, their attention, their sincerity, their trust. And that's what this world is starving for. Not more opinions. Not more arguments. Not more people trying to be interesting. But people willing to be interested. Deeply, genuinely interested. Not in how they appear, but in how others feel. Interested in human potential. Interested in building, not tearing down. Interested in listening more than speaking. You want to win someone over? Then start by winning their heart. Dale Carnegie once said, "You can make more friends in 2 months by being interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you." And how true it remains, even now, in an age of artificial charm and digital applause. Real influence has never been about charisma. It has always been about character. You don't need to have all the answers. But you do need to care enough to ask the right questions. You don't need to walk into a room and be the smartest. You need to be the most curious. You don't have to be the loudest voice. You need to be the most authentic one. Because the quiet power of influence doesn't come from saying the perfect words, it comes from being the kind of person others trust. The kind of person whose presence speaks louder than their voice. The kind of person who doesn't demand respect, but earns it in every small, unseen act of integrity. Influence is never about you. It's about what you help others discover within themselves. So when you walk into that room, into that meeting, that conversation, that decision, don't ask, "How can I stand out?" Ask instead, "How can I lift up?" That's the question that builds legacies. Quietly. Powerfully. Irrevocably. Lift others up, and watch how the world shifts beneath your feet. For influence is not the thunderous roar, but the steady pulse beneath the storm. It is the gentle hand that steadies the trembling, the calm voice that quiets the chaos, the unwavering light that guides the lost through the darkness. When you choose to be that presence, you become more than a leader, you become a beacon. And beacons don't demand attention, they draw it effortlessly, because people are naturally pulled toward the light when all else is dim. Remember, the true test of influence is not how many follow you when skies are clear, but who remains by your side when the storms rage. It is easy to lead when applause fills the room, but the quiet power lies in leading when no one is watching, when your conviction stands firm against doubt, criticism, and failure. Thomas Edison did not invent the light bulb with a single burst of brilliance, he failed over 1,000 times, each failure met with resolve, patience, and a vision undeterred by the whispers of discouragement. This resilience, this steadfast belief in the unseen outcome, is the engine of influence. It says to others, "I will keep going not because I am fearless, but because my purpose is stronger than my fear." And in that moment, you do not just inspire, you become the embodiment of hope. Hope, after all, is the language of the human spirit. It speaks not in grand speeches but in quiet moments, when a mentor leans in with genuine interest, when a friend offers a listening ear, when a stranger's small act of kindness reminds us we are not alone. Influence flows from these moments, weaving a tapestry of connection that no amount of shouting can replicate. Walt Disney once said, "All our dreams can come true, if we have the courage to pursue them." But courage is not a roar, it is a whisper that says, "Try again tomorrow." It is the daily decision to show up, to care, to believe in something bigger than ourselves. And this belief is the foundation of clarity. When your vision is clear, you don't get lost in the noise. You don't chase every shiny distraction or bend to every passing opinion. Instead, you stand firm, rooted in purpose. Henry Ford built an empire not by inventing the automobile, but by believing that mobility should be available to all. His clarity gave birth to innovation, his discipline transformed industries, and his quiet conviction changed the course of history. Influence is the child of clarity and purpose, it grows strongest when nurtured by consistent action and unwavering discipline. Discipline, then, is not a punishment, but a declaration. It is the daily promise you make to yourself and to those you lead that you will honor your vision, no matter the cost. It is what separates the fleeting from the lasting, the loud from the powerful. Abraham Lincoln, amidst the chaos of a divided nation, found discipline in hope and resilience in purpose. He listened, he learned, he adapted, and through his steady hand, he influenced the course of a nation not by force, but by wisdom and empathy. Empathy, yes, never underestimate it. The quiet power of influence is grounded in the ability to put yourself in another's shoes, to feel their struggles as if they were your own. It is the B. Influence begins the moment you choose to show up fully, not half-heartedly, not waiting for perfect conditions, but with all the courage and vulnerability you can muster, and it never asks for applause, only authenticity. Because the world is filled with noise, with people desperate to be heard, but true influence whispers in ways that stir the soul, not just the senses. It is found in the courage to be genuine when masks are easier to wear, in the humility to admit what you do not know while inviting others to grow with you, and in the strength to remain steady when chaos tries to pull you apart. You see, influence is less about commanding attention and more about commanding trust, and trust cannot be fabricated, it must be earned, patiently and persistently, through every choice you make and every interaction you embrace. The greatest influencers are those who, like Lincoln in the storm of civil war or Edison in the solitude of the laboratory, embrace failure as a friend rather than a foe, who understand that setbacks are simply the raw material of success, and who refuse to let fear dictate the story of their lives. This refusal, this unyielding belief that what you do matters beyond your own moment, is a gift you give to others. It is the quiet beacon that says, "I believe in tomorrow. I believe in you." And when you give that gift, you become part of something far greater than yourself. But influence is not a solo journey, it is the delicate art of weaving together lives in a shared pursuit of growth, meaning, and purpose. Like a conductor guiding a symphony, the influencer knows when to lead, when to listen, and when to let others shine. There is no room for ego in true influence, only a relentless focus on lifting others to their highest potential. It's the teacher who sees a child's hidden talent, the leader who trusts their team's wisdom, the friend who holds space without judgment. These moments, seemingly small and quiet, ripple outward, shaping the culture around us in ways no loud proclamation ever could. In a world obsessed with instant gratification and viral fame, influence calls us to something slower, deeper, and more meaningful. It calls us to patience, to vision, to the understanding that change is not an event, it's a process. The seeds you plant today may not bloom tomorrow. But with care, consistency, and belief, they grow into forests that shelter generations. That's the legacy of real influence, unseen roots growing deep, branches stretching wide, and leaves whispering stories of courage, connection, and hope. You don't need to be the loudest voice in the room. You just need to be the one who listens deeply, cares genuinely, and leads with quiet conviction. So when the world feels indifferent or overwhelming, remember this: true influence doesn't shake mountains, it wears them down stone by stone, through patience and presence. It's the steady heartbeat beneath the chaos, the light that doesn't burn out. And that power? It lives in you. Not waiting to be found, but waiting to be lived. Through every word you choose, every act of grace, every decision to believe in the best of yourself and others. The world doesn't need more noise, it needs more presence. Not presence that demands attention, but presence that brings peace. That calms the room. That leads without needing the spotlight. That kind of influence doesn't ask for permission. It simply is. Rooted in character. Shaped by truth. Proven in silence. And here's the truth: your presence is never neutral. It either heals or harms. It lifts or it drains. Every glance, every word, every pause, it all carries weight. You don't have to preach to change lives. Sometimes, all it takes is how you listen. Fully. Patiently. Without needing to fix or win. Just to understand. And in that moment, walls fall. Hearts open. Trust begins. That is influence. Think back to the people who changed your life. Was it their title? Their fame? Or was it the way they saw something in you that no one else noticed? The way they believed in you before you did? That's what lasts. That's what we carry forward. Influence begins where ego ends. It's not about being right. It's about making others feel seen, valued, capable. It's not power through force, it's transformation through faith. And the ones who lead that way? They don't need to raise their voices. Because their presence already speaks volumes. So when the spotlight calls, resist the urge to perform. Choose to be real instead. Don't chase attention, cultivate impact. Because brightness may fade. But warmth? Warmth stays. You don't need to be the center of the room to change it. You just need to be the kind of person who makes others feel like they belong there. That is influence. Quiet. Lasting. Unshakable. Be that.